Hi, and welcome to Boy Reads World, the first literary dedication to Boy Meets World. No, I'm kidding, although, hi Topanga. The other day I was on my way to work and I was sitting on the train to Brussels and there was a girl in front of me reading The Secret History by Donna Tartt, which is an amazing book. I saw that she was nearing the end and, there were 25 pages left. And those who have read the book know that there's that big confrontation scene at the end between Charles and Henry. And I just wanted to hug her and ask, are you alright? Because books can be so emotional, and especially that book, well, it was for me. But I also knew that that was not the time to disturb her, because I would be annoyed when some random person just interrupted me while I was nearing the end of such a great book. So why am I telling you this story? Well, that whole train ride made me realize that I really needed to talk to somebody about that book. Even if it's been a couple of years since I've read it, it still lingers. So, yeah, I guess that's the reason why I'm here and why I started this channel, because I want to talk to people about books, about buying books, about how books make me feel, about how you can be so devastated about a book. When it comes to music and movies, there's always somebody who has seen that film or who is also a fan of that latest album. But you have to be lucky that somebody just had read that same book as you, so you can talk about them. I thought I'd start this channel to find people who are like-minded, who also read books, who like to talk about them, who are excited about the latest Hanya Yanagihara book, for instance. Yeah, welcome to my channel. I thought as a way to introduce myself, I'd use the Bookish Beginning Stack by Lauren at Reads and Daydreams, because I think there's some good questions in there about how I started reading and what do I expect from books and so on. So yeah, let's get to it. One of my favorite books were the Whitby Witches by Robin Jarvis. I've always loved a bit of magical elements in the books that I read as a child. I also liked the books by Anthony Horowitz, like Enter Frederick Cab Bauer. I met him as a child, which was quite a big thing for me when I was like 7 or 8 years old. I also love reading a lot of Flemish and Dutch writers, because I'm Belgian and I speak Dutch. Authors like Mark de Bel and Tonke Dracht and Anke de Vries. We have a lot of great children's authors in our country, so yeah, I was definitely spoiled during my childhood years. When I got older, the magical elements disappeared and I started reading books that were far more bleaker than the ones that I just showed. There was Heathrow Nights by Jan Mark, which was one of my favorite books for like a year or so, and also Stone Cold by Robert Swindels. Both those books are about young teenagers who run away from home and live on the streets, or in that one particular case tries to survive in Heathrow Airport. Yeah, I don't know, but it was a world that spoke to me. Children running away, I don't know why that interested me that much. Yeah, I guess 10-year-old me really enjoyed that. If I remember correctly, that has to be like Water for Chocolate by Laura Esquivel, which is a Mexican author. I think the reason that I read that one was the book reports we had to do, but I really enjoyed that one. It's about a girl that is in love with a boy, but her mother is really tyrannical and tries to control her life and doesn't want her to marry. And in each chapter begins with a recipe for a Mexican dish. By preparing that food, girl Laura tries to express how she feels. And it wasn't a typical book report, that much I remember. There was we had to take 10 pictures that summarized the novel, and I remember that that there's a proposal in the book, and I had my father propose to one of my friends, and yeah, I don't know why I did that, but it was quite funny. So yeah, that's probably the reason why I remember reading that book. Yeah, I should definitely pick that one up again. That has to be Jane Eyre, a BBC adaptation of it, and I was so intrigued about that whole different world, a different time than I've never experienced before, that I wanted to pick up the book. And I decided that I wanted to read it in the original language, which, I was like 14 or 15, which is not the ideal age to read that kind of English, especially because I only had followed like 1 year of English at that time. But I think I struggled through, and yeah, it definitely gave me a love for the classics. I think the next one that I read was The Count of Monte Cristo, which took me 3 years, but still remains one of my favorites to this day. That is A Visit from the Goon Squad by Jennifer Egan. I wasn't really that much of a fan of short stories, but this book really made me a fan of the genre. One of the things that I really enjoyed about this book, that there's always one or two characters that re-emerge from the previous story into the next story. And that was something that I hadn't encountered before. Also, the edgy humor in all of these stories really made me a fan. So since I've read this, I've definitely picked up a short story or two. So yeah, thanks Jennifer. This may be a weird one to have started with, but it was Beloved by Toni Morrison. I was also quite young when I read this. I think I was like 16 when I read this, and I was definitely too young. I didn't understand a lot of it. The fact that it was about slavery in Kentucky in the 19th century, I think. Yeah, in the 19th century. That I find quite captivating, but most of it went over my head. I didn't know enough at that time, so I reread it like 5 years after that, and then I could appreciate genius that is Toni Morrison. I've read Song of Solomon since then, and I'm a fan. Of course, for me, every English book is a piece of translated fiction, so I'll stick to French. The first French book that I've read was Un sac de billets, which was a book that was written in the 70s about the author's childhood when he tried to escape from the Nazi regime during the Second World War. Reading this as an 8-year-old was quite harrowing, but also necessary, because it really gives you a picture about how life was like in the Second World War. Finally, question 7 is, why did you start BookTube, which I've already explained, I think, and how is it to film your first video? Well, this is my first video, and it's quite difficult, I feel, because I've never been in front of a camera, and it's quite weird to see myself talking, and yeah. I think I'll get used to it, and if not, maybe this is my first and last video. So anyway, I think that's all I've got to say for now. If you want to leave a comment below, I'd really appreciate it, whether it's about the book that I've just talked about, or why there are 2 different kind of wallpapers on the wall behind me. It's all good, so I'll see you in my next video, and bye!
That'll teach me to read a book.